Hi, I'm Jeff Walters, and welcome to The Minutes. And thanks for listening today. It's great to have you on The Minutes for the week of April the 15th, 2024. This is a City of Thunder Bay podcast. The Minutes takes a look at what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this past week. On this episode, we'll have a rundown of what happened at this week's City Council meeting and an interview with Cory Halvorsen, the city's Parks and Open Spaces manager. We'll hear about some major changes coming to the conservatory. But first, Council approved the rezoning of a piece of property on River Street. The rezoning would allow for a 4-unit apartment building on a piece of land currently zoned as neighborhood commercial. The lot is bordered by both River Street and Antonesian Avenue and is currently vacant. The Planning Department recommended approval of the rezoning. Council heard last night from the chair of the Downtown Fort William Revitalization Committee, who wanted to keep the committee operational. The chair said the committee should continue until its work is complete. Administration, though, recommended dissolving the group, as it feels the majority of the committee's mandate has been fulfilled. Staff who support the committee would be redirected to housing priorities. Administration also feels the work required in housing in Thunder Bay will indirectly help the Fort William area. The committee's work included providing perspectives and advice for the demolition of Victoriaville, recommending concepts and ideas to revitalize the downtown Fort William area, and implementing a renewal plan for the neighborhood. To implement these concepts, a consultant recommended creating a development corporation for the downtown Fort William area at a later date. An amendment, though, was proposed to maintain the committee, which was passed at Council. The terms of reference for the committee will also be examined. A report will come back to Council in a year. Council approved a $7.7 million contract to move ahead with Phase 2 of rebuilding the conservatory. There was lots of discussion on the city's infrastructure gap and funding shortages, and that the cost of other projects may potentially increase as well. The work would renovate the existing Centennial Botanical Conservatory's display area and the back of house. It would also reduce the building's greenhouse gas emissions by 90% and save about $90,000 in utilities a year. MBuild's limited partnership was the successful bidder on the contract. The bid is still higher than the grants and capital funds already budgeted by the city for this work, so some reserve funds will be used to pay for the project. The work includes replacing the east and west wing aluminum structures in the floor space areas, refinishing portions of the steel structure and piping in the tropical display areas, reglazing the windows and redoing the flat roofs, automating venting and irrigation systems, redoing the heating, cooling, and electrical systems, and tying in the in-floor heating from the production greenhouses and removing asbestos. Other work includes refurbishing the washrooms, general upgrades to the remaining public areas, and upgrades to allow public groups access to the gallery and greenhouse areas. The tender for this project is 30% higher than anticipated. In a report, administration says this is because of a limited number of glazing subcontractors, the project taking longer to complete than originally estimated, and a shortage of some contractors. $2.8 million will be used from reserve funds or taken from other sources to pay for the conservatory work. The renewal concept for the conservatory was approved in June of 2021. We'll hear from City Parks Manager Cory Halvorsen in just a few minutes to talk more about this conservatory project. Council approved a contract for just about $900,000 to redo the roof on the transit garage. Rugged Air Industries will do the work, which will only be on a portion of the building. The work is 2/3 funded by the provincial and federal government's Investing in Canada infrastructure program. City Council got a look at the updated urban design guidelines and landscaping guidelines on Monday night. The guidelines influence how projects are designed, influencing accessibility, community safety, urban revitalization, sustainability, and climate change resilience. The guidelines are used by developers, city planners, and council to evaluate the design of development projects. The guidelines can be supported when a development is subject to site plan control. The guidelines were brought forward as a first report, with council debating the guidelines at a meeting in June. An implementation plan will be brought to council in about a year. And that's a wrap as to what happened at council this week. For more information on anything that happens at council, please visit our website, thunderbay.ca/council. It's a Centennial project that's about to get a new lease on life. City Council approved millions of dollars of work to the Centennial Botanical Conservatory on D Street on Monday night. The work will give the building, built back in 1967, a much longer lifespan and reopen some areas that are currently closed to the public. Cory Halvorsen is the Parks and Open Spaces Manager. Cory, thanks for coming into the Minute Studio today.
You're very welcome.
So a handful of years ago that the conservatory was on the chopping block, even slated for closure. Today we're talking about putting a lot of money back into that building. So I guess what's changed over the last couple of years?
Yes, I think we were able to demonstrate through our reports to council the overall value of the facility beyond standard visitation, but also how it supports our plant and flower production throughout the city. So those two things combined put a sort of more solid business case forward to continue to operate.
So the conservatory is much more, as you said, than just the part that the public sees, I guess, the tropical display or tropical greenhouse. Is that what it's called?
Exactly, yes.
So I guess what else is at the conservatory that maybe the public doesn't see?
So yes, in behind the traditional botanical display area are the back of house greenhouses. Those have been in place all along, doing the production for the plants and flowers for the parks within the city. So that was phase one of the project, was to basically demolish those and do a total rebuild. And at the same time created an annex building addition to connect the new greenhouses to the tropical house display area.
And that work, that was phase one. Is there anything left to do there?
No, that work's completed. The greenhouses have been operational, and now we're looking forward to phase two.
So what are some of the changes or what are some of the things that we're going to see to happen in phase two?
Yeah, so phase two is essentially a complete renewal of the facility. So from heating, ventilation systems, the whole boiler system is going to be replaced. Reconstruction of all of the pathways throughout the facilities, making them fully accessible so everyone can access all areas of the tropical display and wing areas. A complete reglazing, so all of the glass that you see on the outside of the structure will be replaced with acrylic glazing. Again, all of the steel, everything will be refinished, rebuilt essentially. The wings are actually going to be a full rebuild, so the structure will come down and a whole new structure and glazing will be put up. The main display area will rely on the existing structure and the glazing will just happen on top of that. So when the product is finished, it really will look like it's totally renewed.
So this is a lot of work. It just sounds like a lot of work. What are the timelines to get this all done?
Yeah, so the tentative project schedule that we're looking at right now, with award of the project over the next few weeks, we'd see construction activity likely beginning in May. It's going to span 2 summers. So this summer would be the reconstruction of the wings. And then before the winter, I believe we'd be getting the heating ventilation systems renewed so that we'd be prepared for the winter. And then next summer would be the reglazing of the main tropical display facility and all the work that goes along with that. So there may be some work happening throughout the winter inside, but we don't have the full complete schedule in front of us yet.
And are you able to keep any parts of the conservatory open while you're doing this work?
No, we closed back in February. We had to start moving some of the display areas that were conflicting with some of the construction work. So some of those plants have been brought into the greenhouse. We're actually leveraging, that's why we did it in phases. We built the new greenhouse facility not only for production, but to be able to support phase two construction to allow us to bring some of the display into the greenhouse, store it there temporarily. We have many of those plants and flowers are in that location right now. It's really a joint effort between the two phases.
Hard to move some of the plants, I guess. Like I'm thinking of some of the big trees that you have in the conservatory. Those must be tough to move.
Yeah, there are limits to what we can move that physically that we can get from point A to point B. So much of the display remains in place. A lot of the things we've removed or moved out of the way. We're at ground level things so if you look at the ground level, it looks cleared out, but some of the main features are still in place, and we'll be pruning those throughout to keep them a required distance away from the shell of the building, because that's where some of the work has to happen, obviously.
And I guess the goal was to try and keep everything alive and thriving as much as you can.
Yes, it's kind of a project within a project. It's not a standard facility renewal. we're doing that while we're maintaining a living display, right? And we're having to adjust, move some things out of the way, propagate some of it so that if anything that you can't keep in its exact size or location, you can have cuttings of that and still have access to the original plant. So that project is happening simultaneously, and that's part of our focus right now, actually, is to evaluate our current status prior to the construction occurring, and then have a plan for continuing to maintain those display areas while construction is occurring until the end of this phase.
Yeah, and saying I have a hard time with my wife's houseplants, I don't. Yeah, this sounds like quite the job.
Yes, and again, this is the core uniqueness of this facility. The people that have maintained that facility for decades and up to current day, they really have a specialized skill set. They really care for the work that they do there, and we rely upon them heavily for this to be a success once we get into the renewal.
So this is an expensive project. The price tag a little higher than expected originally when this all was being put together a while ago. How do you kind of deal with that?
Yeah, we put forward estimates that based on the best information we had. We were confident that we had the best information at the time, but at the end of the day, this is a very unique renewal. It's a very unique project. So those are some of the factors that impacted the final prices that we saw. Again, we're not just talking about a construction area that you can completely isolate off and have full control within. They're working in and around display areas. We're dealing with a type of facility that is non-standard, specialized subcontractors. So those are the reasons why we saw some of the prices increase.
And then from a budgeting perspective, I guess, how do you deal with that? Like you had a certain amount of money kind of set aside. How do you make up the remainder?
Yeah, well, again, we've been fortunate with this project that we had a large amount of external funding early on in the project. That's helped us leverage some internal capital funds and reserves that, had we not had access to the external capital, we wouldn't have been, accessible to us. So we have relied on that in combination with various sources of capital. So really, at the end of the day, we evaluated the submission that we received, understood why we saw some escalating prices, and the value of the overall facility and the operation has not changed. It's just we're having to deal with some changes with cost.
When the conservatory reopens in a couple of years from now, what can people expect to see?
Again, it's going to look like a new facility. It's not going to look like it's in need of repair. That's what has been the reality for a number of years at this point. We've had wings that were closed and inaccessible. We've had netting up over the glazing in the main display area. So we haven't been able to really advocate and market and bring people to it for that reason, because for a variety of reasons. So yes, I'm actually very excited to see people's reaction when they come into the renewed facility. It's going to be a new experience, but also have the history mixed in. So it's going to be a nice balance, and we're going to be able to offer, I think, a lot more access. There's going to be a lot more opportunity for programming that, again, over the last decade, programming that used to rely upon the wings, access to the wings, has just not been feasible, right? So that alone is going to change our ability to generate events and activity, not just from the operation itself, but through community partners and stakeholders who will be able to just leverage the facility that we put forward.
And I noticed in the report, too, there was talk of possibly using some of the back greenhouses for some public groups or for some stakeholders as well. Can you elaborate a bit about that?
Yeah, that was really a requirement that we stuck to for phase one, was that the traditional greenhouses that we had were really an operational area. They weren't fully accessible. You couldn't bring the public back there. They were an operational environment. So the renewal of the greenhouses was done in a way that we can bring the public back in a controlled way, right? So not just open access to the public, but if there are programming opportunities, educational opportunities to bring the public back in small groups to actually interact with the greenhouse or have programming offered that leverages the greenhouse, that's a possibility now, because it is a full concrete slab, totally accessible space, and it's been designed in a way that was planning for that type of activity. So really, we have opened up and created more space for within the entire facility for that type of activity.
Cory, I know my kids will be very excited once the conservatory opens in a couple of years too, because they love going there. Yeah. Appreciate coming in today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cory Halvorsen, he is the manager of Parks and Open Spaces, and he joined me here in the Minutes studio. A big thanks for listening to the Minutes this week. Of course, if you want more information about City Council, agendas, or minutes, visit thunderbay.ca/council. If you want to listen to past episodes or maybe provide some feedback, visit thunderbay.ca/the minutes. You can also find the Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Google, and Amazon podcasts, along with Spotify, plus our website as well. I'm Jeff Walters. Thanks for listening this week. We'll chat again next week. Make it a great day.